Donald Trump is committed to choosing a Supreme Court nominee. He says as soon as the end of this week. And of course, this is meant to fill the vacant seat left behind following the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, he shared his thoughts during a recent interview with Fox News. Let's take a quick listen to what he had to say.
There are actually five I'm looking at. It's down to five. And they're all, it could be any one of them. They'll all be great. These are really top people. To get on that list, I created a list.
Mr. President, who's the other two?
I'd rather not say, but they're two fantastic people. So I'm looking at five, probably four, but I'm looking at five very seriously. I'm going to make a decision on either Friday or Saturday. I will announce it either Friday or Saturday.
So he will announce his decision late this week, either Friday or Saturday, as you heard in that clip. And I would argue that part of the reason why he didn't name the other two potential Supreme Court nominees is because he knows nothing about any of the nominees, including the individuals on his list. You're gonna see why I think that in just a minute. But first, let me give you some background information that I do think is relevant when it comes to this fight. Number one, there are some Republican senators who disagree with holding a vote for a Supreme Court pick until after the election. They want to wait until after the election to do it. Two moderate Republicans, I wouldn't say they're moderate, I'll explain why in a second, but Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski not support a vote on nominee before voters decide whether Trump will hold office for a second term. Democrats need just two more of the 53 GOP members in the Senate to peel off to stymie the effort. So there are some Republicans who might agree with Collins and Murkowski. For instance, you have Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney hasn't committed to anything yet, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is urging Republican senators to keep their powder dry and not commit to anything. But Collins and Murkowski are facing tough re-election battles. Well, Collins certainly is. And in both states, Donald Trump's approval rating is pretty low. And so it's not really about their ideological beliefs. It's more about maintaining their political positions and their place in the Senate. Also, when you look at public polling, you'll see that the majority of Americans, 62%, agreed the vacancy should be filled by the winner of November 3rd. So of course the general election, while 23% disagreed and the rest said they were not sure. 8 out of 10 Democrats felt this way, and 5 in 10 Republicans, surprisingly, also felt this way. So Cenk, before we get to some details about the potential Supreme Court picks, I wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm actually surprised it's 5 out of 10 Republicans, but maybe it's because they really drilled into everybody's head through Fox News and other outlets. Remember, it is definitely a rule that you do not fill a seat, Supreme Court seat, the year before an election, because that was the Mitch McConnell rule that they put on Merrick Garland. And I guess it takes a couple of days or weeks to undo that brainwashing and put in new brainwashing saying, no, actually, when it's super close to an election, it's awesome to fill the seat. So that's what Fox News and Trump and McConnell are busy doing now. So we'll see how the polling moves. But right now, that message hasn't gotten to some Republicans. Probably by the end of this process, instead of it being 5 out of 10 Republicans, it'll be 2 out of 10 Republicans who think that they shouldn't fill that seat. Most will think that they will. So now, are the Republicans gonna fill that seat? Of course they are. I mean, Jess writes in our member section, the Republicans do not care about being called out for their lies nor their hypocrisy. They only care about their power. That's 100% right. I love our members, tyt.com/join to become one. So in terms of Trump, he wants it before the election. Now, anyone who thinks that this is anything but political is hilarious. So your point about Collins is 100% true, but it has a second part of it that's very important. She's saying, hey, we gotta wait till election day. Okay. But remember, the most likely outcome is that they confirm the person in the lame duck session. That's after election day and before the new Congress is seated. So I would be shocked if the Susan Collins of the world, if after losing their election was like, no, you know what? I said it, so I'm just gonna stay with it. No, all that the GOP cares about is power. So they will do whatever it takes to get that person in that seat.
Look, if I were a Republican voter, I'm keeping it real. I'd be super proud of them. Right? You think Republicans care about hypocrisy? No, they want control, they want power. And Republican lawmakers are gonna do what it takes to ensure that they accumulate that power and they get that Supreme Court vacancy filled by someone who's ideologically similar to themselves and the Republican electorate. That's how politics works. And unfortunately, we don't have the same line of thinking when it comes to Democratic leadership. And we'll get into details about that later on in the show. We have a story produced specifically for that topic. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the names that have come up recently in regard to Trump's Supreme Court nominee. He has said that he wants to choose a woman, number one. And among the judges thought to be likely candidates are Amy Coney Barrett. We've actually heard her name before, a favorite of social conservatives who sits on the Chicago-based 7th US Circuit Court of Appeals, and Barbara Lagoa, a recent addition to the 11th Circuit, which is located in Atlanta. Now I'm gonna get into details about Barrett in just a second, but to go back to the point about how Trump knows nothing about any of these nominees. He knows nothing about the people he put on his potential nominee list. Get a load of how he answered questions about Lagoa specifically. Take a look.
First on Lagoa, this is the first time we had a chance to look at her bio outside legal circles. We know about Judge Barrett. Tell me about Lagoa and what made her a finalist and what might tip the scales her direction.
Well, she's excellent. She's Hispanic. She's a terrific woman from everything I know. I don't know her. Florida. We love Florida. So she's got a lot of things, very smart. They're all very smart. We don't have to say that.
She's got a lot of things. She's very smart. So he knows nothing about Lagoa. And the reason why Republican lawmakers, particularly Republican lawmakers out of Florida, like her is because she's a Cuban American, and the Latino vote is incredibly important. So they're hoping that Trump chooses her because it could help when it comes to a possible contested general election. Go ahead, Cenk.
She is person, woman. Camera TV, Florida. So I like her. My advisors told me it could help me win Florida in the election. Did I mention she's Hispanic? No, you're supposed to say things about her judicial career. You're supposed to at least bother pretending that you care about the legal aspect of this rather than purely political aspect of it. In fact, you're supposed to pretend that politics is an afterthought. The politics. I really care about judicial principles here. Now, look, in a sense, I enjoy that he gets rid of the normal theatrics of politics, because every politician that does tell you that they care about her judicial record and not about politics is lying. They're all lying. They only care about the politics of it, Republicans and Democrats, except the Democrats' version of politics is lay down and immediately surrender, which is what they're starting to do on this issue. So, Anna, you could tell he didn't make the list when in the earlier clip he insisted, now this is the list I put together. He doesn't even know the other two. They asked him the other two. He couldn't name their name right now, even after the interview. He didn't bother learning anything. That would require reading past a page or reading past 3 names. Of course he doesn't know them, and of course all he cares about is the politics. He's just so ham-handed that he actually admits it.
I know, and he's never been punished in any way, politically speaking, for refusing to do his homework. I mean, he's gotten by with giving incredibly vague answers on everything from Supreme Court nominees to his so-called policy proposals. His voters don't care. But when it comes to the ability to pack the courts with conservative judges, his supporters do care, and oftentimes they do refer to that when they're confronted with questions about how Trump failed to deliver on a host of other issues. And so I do think that this is something that's gonna energize Trump's base. And Cenk, look, I want Democrats to fight. I do think that there might be some avenues in which they can fight this, and we'll get to that in a second. But I do think that Democrats hurt themselves. I mean, first with what they did in 2013 by essentially getting rid of, the 60 vote threshold in order to confirm nominees. Now that did not apply to Supreme Court nominees, but then in 2017, Mitch McConnell's like, I don't like the way they're treating Gorsuch, so I'm going to get rid of this 60 vote threshold as it pertains to Supreme Court nominees, and instead we're going to use a simple majority, which is why in this particular case, all Republicans need is a simple majority. That's it. They don't need a 60 senator threshold in order to hold a vote and to approve this nominee. So that's just something to keep in mind. And so, I mean, I don't know how you feel about that. I feel like in case after case, Democrats change the rules in ways that then later come back and bite them in the butt.
No, look, I've said it 1,000 times, they're paid to lose because, and I'm not Monday morning quarterbacking. I told you as Harry Reid was changing that rule, hey schmuck, why would you change the rule on filibusters when all the polling indicates that you're about to become the minority in the Senate? So you're gift wrapping something that you could have used for 8 years of Obama that you chose not to use, but you're gonna gift wrap it for the Republicans when they get in charge and control the Senate. And people are like, oh no, Jake, you don't understand. They play 3-dimensional chess. No, he played 1-dimensional checkers. And so, of course, the Republicans then captured the majority in the Senate and did everything that they wanted because of how incredibly dumb Harry Reid and all of the Democrats are. I mean, you're gonna see how dumb they are in this particular case as we talk about it later in the show. They couldn't do real politics against Republicans if their life depended on it. And of course, the whole game is that corporate donors pay them to play the patsies, the controlled opposition. So the controlled opposition is supposed to lose, and that's what they're in the middle of doing now.
And finally, since I promised, who is Amy Coney Barrett? Well, she is extremely conservative, which certainly worries advocates of reproductive rights. She says that she does not allow her Catholic religion to influence the rulings she hands down or the decisions that she makes. Democrats pointed to comments she made at Notre Dame years before about being a different kind of lawyer. She said, we should always remember that a legal career is but a means to an end, and that end is building the kingdom of God. Out of law school, she clerked for Antonin Scalia, who she considers a mentor and with whom she shares a belief in originalism, which is the idea that judges should attempt to interpret the words of the Constitution as the authors intended when they were written. And so look, a lot of people are worried about the reversal of Roe v. Wade with a majority conservative court. I totally understand that. Other things to be worried about include the absolute overwhelming repeal of the Affordable Care Act, which would mean that Americans would no longer have protections against insurers denying them for pre-existing conditions. There really is a lot on the line here. And even though everyone's focusing on Roe v. Wade, which is important, I'm not trying to diminish that. There are a number of other issues that would negatively impact Americans overall that go beyond reproductive rights.
And if we lose the Affordable Care Act right now, coronavirus becomes a pre-existing condition. Boom. That's another 6 million people who can't get insurance. So that's if you just stop right now. Reality is that'll be well over 10 million by the time that this is done. So, and by the way, Citizens United will then become permanent. So it's disaster on top of disaster. One more comment from our members because it's such a good one. Someone who likes Bernie Sanders wrote, and that's their title actually on our website. I think Trump voters are on board for waiting until after the election because they're 100% sure that Trump is going to win. So it's less about principles and more about what's the rush. It's true, in their world, Trump has a 90% chance of winning. So they're like, who cares? Let's just do it after the election. What difference does it make? Because we all live in our own bubbles and they can't read polling. But look, it's got everybody energized. Just in the time we were doing this video, people who became members by clicking the join button below on YouTube, Barry Wheeler, Maricela Guillen, Curbside Odin, Adona Langer, Mary Gladstone, LPS Grace, 331. So look, we got to be stronger. Progressives have to be stronger because corporate Democrats are never going to do the job. So I hope they can step out of the way and let us actually work effectively to block whoever Trump is going to appoint.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.